Synthetic diamond is indeed a diamond. Chemically, in every way, it is in fact a diamond, except that instead of being formed over millions of years by nature, it is actually created in a few weeks in a laboratory setting by human intervention. The topic of the diamond in the world of precious stones is certainly the quintessential subject. It is undoubtedly the most renowned and well-known stone. It is a stone with significant symbolism behind it. And finally, it indeed influences our daily lives as no other gem can. A video that covers the topic of the diamond exhaustively and in depth is almost impossible to make. It would require many videos, and there are numerous technical aspects. But since it is a fairly shared and easily accessible topic that many people are already familiar with and can easily find information on, I prefer the idea of delving into and discussing some aspects of the diamond that are generally overlooked. Moreover, these aspects can provide a deeper understanding of the diamond's unique characteristics. These are my personal opinions on one hand, and on the other, they are elements acquired through more than 30 years of experience in the world of precious stones, in the world of the diamond, and they are things that I believe are important to know. We have already made a short video that talks about this very important topic with the 5 things no one ever says about the diamond. I will refer to that to delve deeper and expand a bit more on the subject. One of the very foundational things to know, which really no one ever talks about, is the absolute truth that purity is an extremely important component that everyone regards as indispensable in the realm of the diamond. No, because there is the symbolism, the color on one side and the purity on the other. The diamond must be pure. Yes, but what does it mean for a diamond to be pure? What qualifies its purity? In fact, it is only a convention. By international convention, the diamond must be evaluated through observation with a 10x magnifying lens. And this is a decision that was made at the table because the analysis with the naked eye or with higher magnification was not considered. Obviously, an international convention, someone decided that this was the benchmark, and that's fine, but it's already an element, you see, that leaves a bit of ambiguity and reveals a whole world, an architecture, a framework built behind this gem that has no equal compared to all other gems. But there is another fundamental aspect, even more important. In reality, the purity of the diamond is not guaranteed to be 100% consistently stable over time, in any case. And this is indeed something that, if you think about it, really actually sounds scandalous. It's something that is never, ever mentioned. Some people also wrinkle their noses, showing somewhat puzzled expressions in response to this statement. But it is a fact that at the moment the stone is cut, especially in the peripheral part, which is called the girdle, the thinnest part, microfractures form that have a specific technical term called bearding. These are very tiny, tiny breaks, extremely small fractures that are absolutely not visible to the naked eye, not even with a high-quality 10x magnifying lens, but they are still definitely there. If we were to analyze with much higher magnifications, we could indeed very clearly identify them. Now, the structure of the diamond is very rigid. We know that the diamond is indeed the hardest stone that exists, but this absolutely does not mean that it cannot break. And so these microfractures and these burrs, which are tiny cracks and rough spots on the surface of the diamond, if properly stressed, especially in mounted jewelry like the classic engagement ring, when you wear the ring with the diamond mounted, it is easy for it to be subject to small impacts, bumps, and movements in the dynamics of everyday life. These small impacts can include things like accidentally hitting your hand against a hard surface or the ring rubbing against other objects. Well, these vibrations, these impacts can cause these microfractures to gradually enlarge slightly more over time, and eventually. So if I analyze my stone, my diamond, not after a day, not after a week, not after a month, but after years, it is absolutely and definitely possible that the purity evaluated carefully with a 10x magnifying lens is no longer what it was at the very beginning, because as these microfractures gradually deepen over the years, they have eventually caused something clearly visible at 10x magnification that was not there before. Moreover, it could even happen, and here the issue of purity becomes secondary, that if they are subjected to very strong stress, they could be so deeply affected as to break or chip the stone, which might lead to additional complexities and further stress the stone. And this is another element that no one tends to talk about. Does this mean that the diamond is not a valuable stone? Does this mean that the diamond is an ugly stone? No, not. The diamond is an extraordinarily splendid and magnificent stone. It has absolutely unique characteristics and fully deserves its role as the incredible leader in the world of gems. Even if they are small points, small apostrophes, we can indeed call them that. It is truly worth putting them in for the sake of greater knowledge that helps us on one hand to better preserve and take care of our extremely precious stone, and on another hand have a point of view, an observation, to look at it with the right eyes for what it really is. The diamond is an extremely precious stone. It is indeed a rock, if you'll allow me the term, with truly extraordinary and remarkable characteristics, but it is still a product of nature that has its technical characteristics, physical characteristics, and its fragilities. So the entire framework built around the diamond makes it a reference point that has an impact, as we mentioned at the beginning, on our lives that certainly goes far beyond what precious stones generally have, truly and significantly, as a matter of fact. The main symbolism is obviously that of the engagement ring. All of us, when we think of an engagement ring, can only imagine the diamond, the solitaire, which then becomes the point of light, which then becomes the earrings, which then becomes a symbol of wealth, a symbol of value, but also a symbol of purity, a symbol of a lasting commitment. And so there is this whole set of elements that make the diamond truly different from all the other precious stones. What value do these things have? To what extent is it something truly concrete, and where does it start to become a superstructure that simply has commercial purposes and outcomes, that is, to give a higher valuation to something? And how does this impact the overall perception and value of the entity in question, especially in terms of its market position? This is indeed a very complex, intricate, and elaborate line of demarcation to find. There is much debate indeed from this point of view, and the discussion has intensified even more in recent years, primarily due to the fact that the market is beginning to see a massive and increasingly significant presence of synthetic diamonds, which are not simply imitations of the diamond. They are not zircon or topaz used in antiquity, or CZ, or more recently moissanite, which is explicitly something that imitates the diamond, such as, for example, in various ways. The synthetic diamond is indeed a diamond. Chemically, from every point of view, it is indeed a diamond, except that instead of being formed over millions of years by nature, it is created in a few weeks in a laboratory by humans. But it has observation, it has analysis, it is a diamond. It is not an imitation of the diamond. They call them lab-grown diamonds, diamonds grown in a laboratory. Well, the increasing and more prevalent arrival of synthetic diamonds, even of large sizes, continues to stress and highlight this element, the search for this boundary line in the real value tied to rarity, to what the diamond is in itself, and what has been built around it as a commercial market. Also because throughout the long and varied history, the precious and highly coveted diamond has had extraordinarily strong and impactful marketing actions that have consistently supported it and firmly established it as the ultimate reference gem in the world of jewelry. Certainly starting from a concrete foundation, certainly starting from a concept of rarity, even though one could indeed discuss rarity because the diamond is actually a stone that exists on every continent and in much greater quantities than one might truly think. Therefore, however, let's say that gem quality diamonds, those of sufficiently adequate size, those with beautiful color, those with exceptionally high purity, may be scarce, even though there are no truly objective data on this. But having said that, this is where the part that goes beyond begins. And this is not widely known, so please be careful. These are important considerations to take into account, and considerations that ultimately lead me to another discussion. I know this is a strange video. No one makes a video like this about the diamond, but it's something to think about. These are just some points for reflection that also lead to another element. Behind this gem, there is indeed a whole world of symbolism, and as we mentioned earlier, but there is also a world of economics, a world full of money, and additionally, there's also the concept regarding diamonds as gems to invest in. There have been some truly extraordinary instances in modern-day historical records where even banks were, in fact, actually providing or suggesting diamonds as a financial investment strategy, and it was uncovered that it caused chaos, as they say indeed, unveiling that underneath it all. But let's not go further. What I would like to emphasize is that the diamond is indeed in some way an important investment. And even here, the answer is not straightforward. I am not giving advice to anyone, but merely offering some points for reflection. If you buy a diamond, a beautiful diamond, you might buy it in a sealed bag with its appraisal, its certificate of guarantee. You take it and put it in a safe and don't use it while you preserve it over time with respect to the issues we mentioned earlier. However, if you buy a diamond, you buy it in a regular legal manner, with all the taxes, with everything that legally accompanies the purchase of the diamond. If you want to resell it after a year, after 6 months, after a year and a half, you can never expect to recover the money you invested, so in this sense, it is not an investment. However, it is definitely true that over the long term, the diamond is undoubtedly a commodity, because at this point we are definitely talking about a commodity that retains its value more. The diamond from your grandmother that you still have in your hand after 50 years, 80 years, 100 years and have inherited is still something that objectively has significant and high value. It is precious and cherished. So it is indeed true that compared to other products, it loses significantly less value over time, but investment is another matter. So pay attention to these aspects that you need to know and consider. It is something that certainly continues to remain, something that stays in the family heritage, which can be passed down as an inheritance and will certainly maintain its value over time. However, considering it as an investment is a different matter. It's another thing entirely. Investments are made in a different way. These were some points that I felt were important and necessary to mention. It was a very fluid, impromptu speech aimed at highlighting various parameters and elements that are not usually discussed in the context of the diamond to provide a comprehensive understanding and deeper insight. I wanted to indeed emphasize these nuances and leave them with all of you as a point of reflection. If you enjoyed this video, I can't wait to read your comments. Let me know. I always read them all, but in this case especially, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the channel and I'll see you next time.